You've said that to not take action on climate change would be criminal. Is that your message for President Trump?
I think, many people know how to make hot news out of everything. I think that's what people want to do, is sensationalize everything. I would put it very simply. I'm simply talking about the aspirations or the dream that new India has for itself. That is one thing. The second thing I would like to mention is that I have mentioned about the Vedas, which are the knowledge bank of India, about 5,000 years ago. I wasn't born then, by the way, and in which it was mentioned that human beings, a man, it's okay to milk nature. We have the right to milk nature. However, we do not have the right to exploit nature. This is what our Vedas say 5,000 years ago. I have only mentioned what has been mentioned 5,000 years ago. Number two, just 3 years ago in Germany, somebody asked me the same question. And of course, we did not have any statement from anyone at that time. And in Germany, I mentioned that whether there is Paris Accord or no Paris Accord, we are convinced that, and that is part of our cultural tradition, that we must not steal something that rightfully belongs to the next generation. We have to make sure that we must leave behind a beautiful, bountiful nature for our future generations so that they can live peacefully, they can breathe fresh air, and live a good life. This is a fundamental concern of India from ancient times. And I have used that example in Germany. I use the same example today.
But if I may, President Trump might agree with that, but the question is whether it's going to cost so many jobs and hurt America so much economically that right now it's not the best move for us. That's his position. It's caused outrage by other leaders. Where do you fall on it? Which side do you fall on?
I do not think that this subject, in fact, it's not a question of taking sides. This is not the subject. What I'm talking about is thinking for the future generation, the generation that is not even born today, that the generation or the people who are to be born in the next years, that's the side I'm on.
Modi, if you'd like to weigh in on China and your relationship with Russia, and I'd also just like to ask you, as you have this close relationship with President Putin and with Russia, is that a help or a hindrance to your relationship with the United States? And is it an either-or situation?
When we talk about these issues, right now we have to stay where we are. 20, 25 years ago, that is not the world we have today. We do not have a world which is bipolar in nature. In fact, the entire world is interconnected and interdependent at the same time. And for that, it is important that, in fact, you must have seen in every country is linked with another country in some form or the others. There might be some issues of dispute, but there will be some issues with cooperation, but each country tries to work together. With regard to a relationship between Russia and India, as I mentioned also, that it has pass through the test of time, and it is based on trust. And my request to all of you is that the St. Petersburg Declaration that we announced yesterday, it is a 24-page long declaration, and I understand that the entire world will be reading each and every word that has been mentioned in that declaration and investigate it very closely, and we'll be able to understand how Russia and India intend to move forward together. Now, with regard to China, it is correct that like Russia has certain border disputes with China. Similarly, India also has certain border disputes with China. However, in the last 40 years, there has been not even one bullet has been fired with regard to border dispute between India and China. In fact, India and China are linking together economically. They are having more relations with us and vice versa. In fact, we have investment out of both countries into each other's countries. Even the state level, the political relationship and the interaction that we have is at the topmost level with very high frequency. In that sense also, I think you have to understand that don't look at two people from a third point of view. Russia knows how China and India are related. We know what relations are between Russia and China knows how the relations are between Russia and India. And despite of that, just as President Putin mentioned, in BRICS, there are 5 countries who are working and moving forward shoulder to shoulder. There are very important 2 institutions that we have made together. China has taken a bank initiative in which promotion India also is taking part. BRICS has also initiated a bank in which we know that we've all in unison agreed for leadership of China, and all the BRICS countries are together. In that sense, the entire world is interconnected and interdependent, and India believes in to go together and to grow together. So this is not something which is related with just the people of India. I think India wants to move ahead with everybody and move forward towards our growth and development. That is our sole objective.
Prime Minister Modi, President Putin said the other day that Russia does not engage in state-sponsored interference with other countries' elections. Do you believe that?
You should ask President Obama.
No. I didn't hear his response, man. You are talking about America, Germany, and Russia. You talked about President Trump, about Mrs. Hillary Clinton, about Chancellor Merkel, and about President Putin. You've been talking of such big people today. I don't think that you don't need a lawyer like me in between all of you.
We never need more lawyers.
Да, не тут-то было. С индусами непросто. Древняя.
Yes, it's very hard to deal with the Hindu. You cannot trick them because their philosophy is so long. We are simple people. We say what we think.
We can dial back to something that came up earlier, and you, Prime Minister Modi, about the Silk Road, just to shift off of Syria. The Chinese president pledged $124 billion on Sunday for his new Silk Road to create more free trade, calling for an open world economy. Our president has questioned global free trade deals. Where do you stand?
There's one thing that I would like to clarify first, which is with regard to terrorism that was just being talked about a while ago. I think we should understand and accept, firstly, that I'm talking about the 80s and the 90s. Whenever there was talk of terrorism, most of the people understood and accepted that wherever the incident has occurred that there is a problem in the local law and order. most of the people did not understand that what exactly is terrorism and what are the fearsome outcomes of terrorism. India, for the last 40 years, has continuously been a victim of cross-border terrorism. Thousands of people, innocent people, have been killed and have been victims of this. Later on, there came a time where a lot of the other countries started to understand that this is a local problem of a certain country, that it is not really just a little bit more than law and order problems and like terrorism. Then some more time passed and they understood that there were many countries who were under the threat of terrorism, but they never felt threatened by it themselves. They thought it would never come. However, after 9/11, I think the world understood what exactly and what terrorism is, that there is absolutely no border limitation to terrorism. It does not belong to a single country. Wherever there is humanity, terrorism goes and tries to finish humanity. This is their objective. In such a situation, the time demands that we must not limit ourselves to discussing specific incidents. We should look at terrorism as an enemy of humanity. It is out there to finish humanity. All the powers that believe in humanity must get together and fight against terrorism. Only then this horrible conflict, this horrible terrorism, we can save humanity from. You will be surprised to know the General Secretary of the UN is sitting right here. It has been 40 years in the UN. There is a resolution which is still pending about the definition of terrorism. What is a terrorist? Who are the people who shall be deemed to be helping terrorists? What the world should be viewing it at. It has been 40 years. And everybody does a lot of lip service with regard to terrorism, but there is absolutely no discussion on the bill and obviously no decision on it. Yesterday, I'm very happy that President Putin very publicly mentioned that United Nations will put this particular issue forward and make concrete discussion on it. The other thing is that when we talk of terrorism, a terrorist is not a person who manufactures any weapon. Obviously, there is a country that is supplying them the weapons. Now, the terrorists themselves do not make money. They do not manufacture currencies. Obviously, there are countries which are providing them with the funds through money laundering. The terrorism don't have their own social media or telecommunications, but there is some kind of arrangement or some organization which is helping them and assisting them in all of this. My terrorism, your terrorism, good terrorism, bad terrorism. I think every country needs to come out of this particular concept. I think this is an issue of humanity. It is an issue of security of humanity. If we go forward fighting terrorism from that point of view, that is the first time we will be able to actually wage a war against terrorism. Russia and India has always been discussing this topic in detail. The other thing that you mentioned was about the free trade agreement. India is a country that believes in an open economy. All of the decisions that have been taken by India are in that direction. I think everybody is worried about their own, the interests of their own country, and so do we. But when it comes to bring about some fairness or some balance with regard to world trade, we take 2 steps, somebody else will take 2 steps. However, the global economic environment and the global economic era in which we live, I think it is very important that we help each other out and we assist each other for the benefit of all.